What should you be watching for in rookie minicamp? That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this WTSP edition of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at EKlosky WTSP. We are your credential members of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And of course, you can find everything that Evan is doing at 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. I am here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show, become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Undrafted free agents and power rankings coming up in a little bit, but let's start, Evan, with rookie minicamp. Lots of people excited to get a glimpse of the new Buccaneers draft picks. Plenty of undrafted players and tryout players are going to be joining in on the fun, but that rookie minicamp starts Friday. So the big question is, what are you watching for when these rookies take the field this weekend?
You know, with rookie minicamp, I don't put a lot of weight into it because in broad terms and very simplistic terms, it's like orientation for a lot of these guys, right? Because it's rookie on rookie. So you're really judging a lot of these guys based on their colleagues of the same ilk. When I really start to notice is when we get to OTAs and training camp, and we start seeing these guys integrated into the ones, and you start seeing them. Like Jalen McMillan's a great example, right? Jalen McMillan didn't splash in rookie minicamp. We liked what we saw, and I'm hoping that we see the same thing with Emeka Egbuka when he's running routes and catching passes from whoever, right? That's the other part of it. He's not working with Baker Mayfield. He's working with other undrafted guys. So there's a portion of that where you don't want to get too hyperbolic by what you see at rookie minicamp. You just want to be able to know that they're picking up what they're supposed to pick up, and you try to listen real carefully to what the coaches are saying about certain guys. This guy's impressing, Look, I know that Emeka Egbuka is probably going to look good in T-shirts and shorts, but maybe they mention someone, hey, this guy is standing out. We're liking what we see from this guy. And it's like, oh, I didn't really have him on my list. Or it's like Elijah Roberts, right? He's someone that's really been impressive since he's come in. Those are the things that you want to tell, where you don't want to listen to the questions that are leading to the answers, right? How is Elijah Roberts? Well, that's going to lead to probably a good response from the coaches. But say, hey, what are your thoughts on rookie minicamp? And then a coach brings up somebody who, we didn't bring up, or brings up somebody on his own terms. Well, I'm interested now. And we start learning that through the coaches' interviews as well. So that's what I'm really looking at. It's not 100% what I see. It's that what I hear matches up with some early indications of what I'm seeing. So that's really how I attack rookie minicamp. And then progressively it gets more important from there moving forward. But I do like rookie minicamp for just seeing how big certain humans are. And certainly we're going to have one that's really important coming into camp. But you do get a feel for like, oh man, this guy is a massive human being, or he's smaller than I would have thought. Like we get to see him up close and start finding out little nuances about them.
Yeah. You mentioned Baker's not going to be there, so Ibuka is not going to be catching passes from him. A quick shout out to Bowling Green cornerback Connor Bazelak. He is going to be one of the quarterbacks there. He's from Dayton, Ohio. He went to high school.
Shout out Falcons.
Yeah. Scotty Miller, another famous Falcon.
That's right.
But yeah, Connor went to high school at the rival school of where I went to high school. So crosstown rival. Excited.
We're an even bigger fan of him.
Yeah, excited to see him represent Dayton, And look, I'm not going to be surprised if Benjamin Morrison isn't out there like at all. He's still working his way back from the injury. We saw the video that got posted on social media about what he's been going through to get back and all of that. But this is obviously the first glimpse that the Buccaneers coaching staffs and then based on social media posts, what the fans are going to be able to see from these new players. But you kind of touched on it a little bit already, but what is something that you feel it's important to caution fans or warn fans about when it comes to just these brief couple of days of football? Because like you said, we're moving towards the OTAs, and that's when we start to dial it up a little bit. But, what would you say to fans who get a little too overzealous about this weekend and what rookie minicamp means?
It's the start of the mental grind for these players. So like you mentioned, Benjamin Morrison, really good example, because he can be out there on the field and not participate in certain plays or some of the drills, but he's got to be out there to kind of say, hey, this is what we do, right? This is how you're going to line up, and this is where we want you to be. And it's getting a lot of mental reps in. So that's where this starts. Again, this is like ground floor, foundational level. We already have the players during off-season workouts going right now, right? They're doing little things where they get some limited coaching, and they're already steps ahead of where the rookies are. So it's going to be up to the rookies to catch up to the veterans, the people who have been here before, and start really understanding the playbook. So cannot emphasize that enough, that rookie minicamp OTAs for these young guys, more mental than physical. When you get to training camp, the mental and physical have to be one and the same, right? You got to be able to prove that the mental stuff that is so hard to figure out, you can apply it on the field, and those are the special ones. That's when we say, wow, this person is popping. I can't believe this person is looking as good as they do. So, but I always caution against this stuff. Based on training camp last year, you would have thought Tavier Thomas was cornerback too. So you just never know with some of these things of how it's going to pan out. And, you get into the lethargy and everybody knows the plays and you're jumping things. So there's a lot of stuff to understand where you got teammates on teammates, but really with rookie minicamp, just hone in on the mental stuff, and we'll worry about the physical stuff later.
Well, there are lots of undrafted rookies rolling in this weekend that may have a chance to make the roster. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and the news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. So find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, lots of undrafted rookies that are going to be able to get in front of these coaches for the first time this offseason. And Jason Light, he's had some luck finding these guys that end up making the team after going undrafted. Obviously, Cameron Brate is the first one that's going to come to mind, but more recently, you have Christian Izien, you have Tyreek Funderburg, you have Rakim Jarrett, you have Cameron Johnson, Sean Tucker. So some of these guys are going to work their way onto the initial 53-man roster, or at the very least, the practice squad. To me, some of the big names that are coming in are, of course, Desmond Watson, the defensive lineman from Florida. There's Shiloh Sanders, the tolerable brother of that duo. He's the safety out of Colorado. Nebraska linebacker John Bullock, Texas offensive lineman Jake Majors, Georgia State offensive lineman Ben, I'm going to butcher this last name, but I think it's Chukwuma. But Evan, who are some of the players that you're kind of putting your stamp on now as guys that you think have what it takes to make the team after going undrafted?
Well, you mentioned a handful of my guys. Desmond Watson.
Expand.
Desmond Watson is one. Obviously, you can't teach that kind of size. Now, he still has to slim down, and it will be interesting to hear from him. I'm sure we'll speak with him Friday or Saturday about how much weight he has lost. I think, up to this point, it's been, like 30 pounds or something like that. So, I mean, if he can get around to 4 bills, I think that would be huge. But even 380, I mean, he's going to have to make some really significant going to have to put a lot of work into to get a little bit skinnier. I know how great it seems to have a guy of that size next to Vita Vea, but you are very limited at that size of what you can do. So you can't necessarily use a roster spot on someone who's so limited that he can only, literally stuff the run on a 3rd and 1 play, right? You got to make sure you're a bit more versatile. But I think he's more of a player than that if he can continue to work on his weight. So he's a guy that at that size, considering what you have there with Vita Vea, that is a bulky package to work with, especially on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, tush pushes, all that stuff. And if the tush push is not going to be banned, you got to figure out a way to stop it. And if he can clog up the middle there, if a center cannot push him, then you got an issue for the Eagles, right? And they currently won the Super Bowl. And this has been a play that's been so successful. So you might have to waste a roster spot on someone who can specifically stop the tush push for now. And he's the guy who can possibly do it. So certainly a guy that I'm looking at. Jake Majors is another one. Robert Hainsey is gone. And while I know that Bredesen can probably move over there to backup center if necessary, they don't really have a backup center locked in. That will be an interesting battle throughout camp, considering how well Jason Light can find offensive linemen. Even go back to last year, I still haven't given up on a guy like Elijah Klein. I thought he was excellent in the preseason, and someone who I expect to, be a backup tackle, backup guard again. Somebody who can do a little bit of both. I mean, he probably is more of a backup guard. Let me just say that. But Jake Majors has a lot of experience there. Texas reports are overwhelmingly positive for him. He's just a little bit smaller, which, Hainsey was a little bit smaller as well. And in this offense that works because you're mobile, you're going to have to get on the move for some of these plays that were so successful in 2024 if Josh Grizzard wants to run it back. And then you also mentioned John Bullock, and I'll be completely honest, don't know much about him. But I do know that the team desperately needs linebacker depth. I know that the Buccaneers like what they've seen on tape with him. So it's going to come down to his coverage skills, most likely. But he is someone that comes onto this team at a position of need and certainly could fulfill that spot if he can be consistent enough on special teams. And that will be the key there to getting that last spot at linebacker is, can you play on special teams?
Yeah, well, and he has a leg up. He already gets a bonus point for going to Nebraska, right? Isn't that how that works?
I guess with Levante, that's how it works.
Well, Jason Light went to Nebraska.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess I wasn't factoring the front office staff, but you're right. Yes, Jason has an affinity there for the state.
Now, I do have to ask because I think he is worth the conversation, especially given the depth at the position right now. But Shiloh Sanders wasn't a slouch at Colorado. He was a pretty solid safety. And I realized that with him comes some distractions, some outside noise, even though he did fire his dad for being his agent and he hired a real one. But you take a look at the safety position on this Buccaneers roster. You have Christian Izien as depth, but he's likely your starting nickel corner right out of the gate. I mean, is Shiloh a guy that has a legit chance to make this team, or do you think he's coming in more as a camp body that really has to elevate a lot in order to be able to steal one of these spots away from someone else?
He better do the grunt work there on special teams. I'm just like last year, I think the Buccaneers only took 11 defensive backs. So let's go through the top 11 defensive backs. Jamel Dean, Zion McCollum, Benjamin Morrison, Jacob Parrish, Antoine Winfield Jr., Tyke Smith, Christian Izien. And so that's seven locks. Then Bryce Hall.
Bryce Hall, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know what the injury. Do I think that Bryce Hall is going to make the team? Yes, but he is coming off a significant injury, so will it be week 1? You don't really know. But let's just say Bryce Hall's 8. Kendall Vildor is 9. I still think they're not going to give up on Tyreek Funderburk, 10. And then Kayvon Merriweather is 11. That's already cutting Josh Hayes. So that's my point there. So he's going to have to do stuff on special teams to prove that he's deserving of a spot over a couple of, the Merriweather or the Funderburks of the world. And then he's going to have to be, resigned to the fact that he ain't playing. So, unless it's special teams. And he ain't going to play many snaps unless it's like last year where there's a million injuries. So I don't know him. And I am somebody that generates his own opinion of people based on the experiences he has. So I don't know if he's like Shedeur. And that's not to say that Shedeur is one way or the other. I just don't know if he's like his brother, who is a quarterback and has gotten a lot more notoriety. So we know a lot more about him because he's been in front of the camera and we've heard more stories. We don't really know Shiloh. So we're going to figure that out as we go along. I'm sure he is going to be made available to the media, considering the profile. But it is going to be an uphill battle to make the team. Practice squad, absolutely. Is he going to be someone who is willing to stay on practice squad the whole year? I don't know. I'm not saying that as a leading question. I genuinely do not know. So that's probably his path, is to the practice squad.
That's a solid answer. I like that. And especially when you start breaking down how many DBs they kept last year versus what they could potentially keep this year. I did the same thing with wide receivers on a show earlier this week. And it was like, are they going to keep 7? Like that's a dicey conversation. So, all right. Well, Evan gets into the power ranking discussion. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high, and prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. I love the all-in pricing, which means there's no surprise fees when I get to check out. What I see is what I pay. Go ahead and check out the photos of Celtics games that I took my son to on my Twitter page. Those seats were incredible deals, thanks to my friends over at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Wrapping things up here on a WTSP edition of Locked On Bucs. I still can't hold it out. I'm still sick. I can't hold out the wrapping up. I'll start hacking and coughing, and nobody wants to hear that. But
Give it
On the
110%.
On the last show, I had an insider ask me to rank the Bucs against the rest of the NFL in offense, defense, and as a whole. Now, lots of people came out with their post-draft power rankings. We just did those as a network, earlier this week. But Evan, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on where the Bucs stack up against the rest of the NFL and kind of where you see them fitting in, amongst some of the league's best teams.
So for me, I probably have them 10th.
Ooh.
Yeah. Is that what do you have them as?
I didn't give them a hard number. I actually did tiers. And the way I ended up doing it was tier 1 to me is basically trying to predict the conference championship in May. So I have the Eagles, the Lions, the Ravens, the Bills as tier 1. Tier 2.
Yeah, I really like the Vikings. I think the Vikings are a team.
I don't even have the Vikings in tier 2.
Oh, here one of my. I mean, we'll see if I'm like way wrong, but one of my favorite bets preseason is the Vikings winning the NFC South, the NFC North. I really like that team. They've built. I mean, it's going to come down to the QB play, but I think head coach is awesome. They acquired a ton of depth across the board at positions where they were weak at. So I think that not enough people are talking about the Vikings. I like them a lot. They're going to be.
I do like the Vikings roster, but the question marks surrounding the quarterback, that'll make or break their team. So I wasn't ready to go in on them quite yet. But
look at who they had a quarterback last year. And we were entering with Sam Darnold, and we were like,
okay, but there's also the very obvious observation that a quarterback that leaves the Jets immediately becomes good. That's how it works. When they go to the Jets, they're terrible. When they leave the Jets, they're good. He left the Jets, he's good.
Yeah. Go back to the year before when he didn't have Darnold and look at the quarterbacks that were getting by with. I'm a huge Kevin O'Connell fan. I'm just like
I like
there on him. So I support him.
But I guess I should ask you, what teams do you have ahead of the Bucs?
NFC only?
You can.
All right. So Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Lions. Okay. And I'm actually a little bit lower on the Lions than probably a lot of people, but I got to put them up there for now. Ravens. I got to put the Commanders ahead of the Buccaneers. The Vikings I like. Then we start getting into the debatable things of like and I put them all sort of in the same: Rams, Packers, Cincinnati, LA Chargers, Broncos, Niners. So there are just a handful of teams there. So what I kind of did is, instead of like really saying like, oh, these teams are, 8, 9, 10, or 7, 8, 9, I just think somewhere when you get into that, the Bucs are going to be 10 for me. They're a top 10 team, and they're probably 9 or 10 in all that. So where does that put them, right? That puts them in conversation for an NFC championship appearance, with, if things go really well, a Super Bowl appearance. And that's kind of how I view this team.
Okay, so we're not really too far off. We just had different approaches to it. Like the tier that I put Tampa in, it was with the Chiefs and the Commanders. And, I put Bengals with an asterisk. It depends on how
I don't put them in the same tier as the Chiefs until you can do until you can do what they do.
Yeah, but we're not talking about the last 5 years collectively. We're talking about 2025, and the Chiefs weren't.
And they got the magic potion, man. I don't know until they fall off for just a smidge, then I'll buy it. But they just, it's just they keep doing it. It's like, what the heck? So I gotta look. If the Buccaneers were on the reverse foot, we would say the same thing. Like, why are you doubting us, right? So sure. until they prove it, I gotta roll with the Chiefs as one of the best teams in the NFL. And until I see it with my own two eyes, I'm just not going to doubt them.
Well, and it's like again, you and I are kind of on the same page on that, where, I had mentioned the Bucs are in that same conversation as all those other teams, where if we're talking about who the best teams in the NFL are going into 2025, we have to put the Eagles up there because they're the defending champs, right? To be the best, you got to beat the best. We have the Bills up there every year. We have the Ravens up there every year. The Lions are probably the next strongest team in the NFC, but no one's going to bat an eye if, we're on the NFL squad show that we do every week. And, Peter's making a case that the Packers should be in that conversation, or James is making the case that the Bengals should be, or the Chiefs, or the Bucs, or the Commanders. They're all so
that's
up right there.
So I think that the Buccaneers are in that second tier. So right, you talk about the Super Bowl kind of favorites, the Super Bowl favorites, teams that you can easily say, hey, I can, they're going to win their division, they're 100% going to be in the playoffs, all that stuff. That stuff is, I think when you break it all down, I just see the Bucs in a debate with the Rams, with the Packers, with the Bengals, because you get into the nitty gritty stuff. So I'm not gonna crap on Locked On Packers for saying they think that the Packers are better than the Bucs, because I can make an argument for why they are, and I can make an argument for why they aren't. In the end, it's the same table.
Yep. All right. Well, Evan, what do we have going on over on 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app, since the Lightning are dead?
Right now, we got the Ultimate Florida Sports Show airing on 10 Tampa Bay Plus. Me and Chris Porter over there in Jacksonville. We're kind of talking about the biggest topics happening in the state of Florida and beyond. So that's been a fun little new project for us. Check that out. You can also see all the work that we're doing on 10tampabay.com, 10 Tampa Bay Plus, as I just mentioned. Just the day-to-day stuff as the Rays are going through it right now. But, we'll be here talking about the NFL schedule stuff. We got some PGA championship action starting next week. So, we're going to be doing some local stories now that we're in a little bit of the slower months, and we're gonna dig into that. So that'll be fun, along with all the OTAs we'll be at. As they're going to be having every Tuesday here coming up next week, something at $1.
Do we need an exorcism performed at George Steinbrenner Field?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Well, then get on it. Okay. My dad's becoming very impatient. This responsibility falls on you. Find the right guy to perform that exorcism so that the Rays can actually win a home game. All right?
It's been a long time.
All right. Well, yeah, please make sure you're checking out everything that Evan is doing on 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. And of course, make sure that you're following the show on YouTube with those notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, at eCloskey, WTSP, and become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.